phenomenal ways. So I'm super excited to share with you their stories and insights. And yeah, I mean, just all the wonderful things that they're doing. So first up, I'm going to hand it over here, and you'll have to share them. Oh, actually, you do have enough mics. Lorenzo, so briefly introduce yourself. And I definitely want the crowd here to know a little bit about your background.
Thank you very much. My name is Lorenzo. I have a technology background. I'm a scientist. I also have worked a lot with merging the science into business. I've dedicated my life to prevent oil spills and to prevent explosions of pipelines. And with that, the passion for social contribution has brought me to the jungle and to the protection of a jungle in Calakmul that is one of the most pristine and So the work in biodiversity has led to the creativity of creating an NFT that bridges the jungle and bridges Web3 technology, especially through supporting the single mothers that are in Calakmul. And with that, as we share the land with them, protect the environment. So it's been a beautiful process. Supporting the mothers, making the team with them, and bringing also a circular economy possibilities by the honey creation. So with this, we protect the environment, we help single mothers, and we create a little local economy with honey as we bridge with Web3.
Thank you. And we'll have to share the mic, so bear with us. All right, Ariane, so a little bit about you. Tell us what you're all about.
Yes, thank you so much. My name is Ariane Fikki, and I work at Unity Technologies. Some of you may be familiar. You may have heard of Unity. It's a platform that puts the power into creators' hands to make awesome games and initiatives. You may have heard of Nintendo, right? Yeah. But it's also used in a very powerful platform to solve the challenges with technology of the world, creating environments for training and development, as well as building things and putting rocket ships into space. So you may have heard of a digital twin, and that's one of the things I'm most passionate about, especially where it intersects with the blockchain. It's something that's a really neat space, and how we can use technology to solve the challenges of the Sustainable Development Goals set forth by the United Nations. So my background, just a little bit, I grew up in a household with a father who was a scientist, which is an incredibly powerful tool and resource for a young woman who's very interested in the space. And he was a Java developer when there wasn't any Java developers yet. And he talked about the Internet of Things, and this was a very long time ago and very fast forward for that time. And it's really amazing to see today those things that he talked about, and see them in action, and how we can use them to solve the challenges of the world, empower others, women, and diverse peoples as well. And so I'm super excited about that as well. Thank you.
Hey, fantastic. Actually, one of my startups uses her technology, so I think she's quite modest about what they do. It's amazing. And in university, I was the last C developer for my thesis before everybody started Java, you know, so it's you know, lots of connections. So Antonio Vasaiely, I'm a tech entrepreneur, but I also work with a lot of corporates all my career, you know, big companies, which basically run the world in multiple industries and sectors. And I focus specifically on deep tech, so anything around artificial intelligence, blockchain, anything in the biotech field and so on, so I'm related to. So I basically help companies with my startup Beyond Pilot to grow, become profitable, identify their product market fit, and actually then make money and change the world. Because I think one of the biggest challenges we see is companies fail, not because the founders are not capable, but because they just don't find the right product market fit and then are profitable. And I think especially in this scene, a lot of people talk about technology, which technology is not solving any problem. Technology is just a tool. If you don't, you know, are capable to articulate what is the problem you're solving, which has nothing to do with technology, that language, That's why majority of people fail, right? So 90% of startups fail because they don't find product market fit, they don't make money, and ultimately they die off within the first 3 to 5 years. Sustainability and these topics are very close to my heart. I'm a UN advisory board member where the idea is how to use technology to achieve the sustainable development goals faster, because we really have to accelerate when we talk about sustainability and a lot of other topics. And technology is really a tool to achieve that, help to close that time gap. We have not much left, right, for a lot of these things, including diversity, inclusion, and sustainability, the ocean, and so on. So yeah, that's what I'm all about. We're really grateful to be on a panel with you.
Yeah, thank you. So as you can see, we have very impressive individuals here that have done already a lot for the ecosystem. Now, as an education advocate, I definitely would like to know from you all, what are those key things that you should focus on to be successful in creating sustainable cities, sustainable entities to impact the world? So we'll start off with you. So kindly share, Lorenzo, like your education, and what are those things that have helped you as a leader in the industry?
Thank you very much. So the first challenge is actually to find the problem and be able to address all the knowledge to solve this problem. In my case, I went very particular in the corrosion of steel as a first layer and became very expert on that particular process and started creating research and in order to apply that research into steel. So we created 47 patents just for the gas wouldn't leak the pipeline and create very strong damages in communities where pretty much they are isolated and the pipeline goes there, and the high and the risk is tremendously high in those areas. So integrity protocols, integrity software, integrity just for this material to not to corrode and then explode. So it's very raw, it's very technical, but also very applied. And the problem, well, it's a very high damage to human life, a very high damage to ecology, and a very high damage to the energy system that feeds our life. No? So that's, and we went through research and education as a systemic process.
Excellent. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, so I currently work on the government aerospace and defense team, and so the majority of my customers make a huge impact on the world, whether it's military, even our industry partners, but the goal is you can utilize simulation to not only save resources, but to be responsible when it comes to resources. And so it's a really powerful tool in that regard. When we can simulate, we may not have to use rocket fuel or hydrogen, or we may not have to use unnecessary resources that maybe aren't always the best option for our world, right? And so they can simulate and train while keeping others safe, as well as helping slow the challenges that we have currently with some of the environmental initiatives happening. On my team, there's 5 of us that work together collaboratively, and one of my team members is currently working on an incredible project out of Southern California where they're twinning one of the reefs to talk about how we can slow or make a positive impact, because there's very little, when it comes to reefs, there's so much damage that's been done, right? And very hard to find reefs that are really thriving anywhere anymore. And so this is a huge initiative, I think, that we have as a responsibility. We have a team also who focuses on social impact and using technology for good. There's actually a summit up in New York, I believe, that they focus on using games for change as well, where it's including lots of diverse people. Now, for me, I work directly with industry partners. But what I find a lot it kind of serves my passion is that being able to show them how to use the tools and provide tools to creators to solve those challenges that we have as a world. And obviously we have sometimes people problems as well, and navigating that to solve those challenges. And so I think that's one of the things that really sticks out to me is using the technology as our superpower. Ultimately, if we do have challenges, we have a responsibility to use the resources we have. And so at Unity, a really big part of what we focus on is that it's a creator's world, and that a world with Unity is better because we're able to make an impact on each other and on the world around us. And so we do have challenges currently with fragmentation because everybody's moving so fast. And it's like we're building the ecosystem that we're trying to exist in and share resources and innovate and all these things at the same time, which is incredible. But we're not always talking and working in the same direction. So it does become a challenge. And I have conversations with my women in tech that I love very dear. But I think we do have a responsibility to try to collaborate more and connect the dots, and then also to empower creators, because that's how we work towards the future of the 3D internet. And so that's really, I think, a tool in itself to help us empower others to solve the challenges that we deal with every day, whether it's the environment or with each other, right?
Well, for me, to keep it quite short, I think you have to always think about design for sustainability. So you have to sustainability have in mind before you design a product. Give you an example. In the past, when you wanted to change the headlamps of your car, you had to take the entire engine out so people, the repair person was able to access the headlamps of the car. That's crazy, right? Yeah. Takes, I don't know, 3 days to do that. Today, there is a requirement designed for repairability. When you design the car, you have to think about the fact that, well, someday I need to change the headlamps, so you design it into the product before you even start, the development. So I would really suggest anybody who thinks about the product, the service, whatever it is, put kind of sustainability in the front, and then, a lot of other subjects as well, and then start actually developing and designing the product.
Excellent. So you've gotten a little glimpse of what these leaders have done in the industry and some of the skills or backgrounds or processes that you have to think about to be successful. So kindly share, how has your interactions been with government entities in making sure that they implement this technology? And yeah, I'm very interested in learning, because some are very open to new technology and some are not. So we definitely think that's important for our audience to hear.
Okay, so the first challenge that we found is actually being able to educate the government members. So having a certification process created by us as a technology company has been very important. And that's step one. After they get the sense of the importance of the subjects and the knowledge, then you can join regulation teams and be invited to them. So we spent practically 4 or 5 years educating and creating regulation groups that were implemented into these systems as laws, as norms, and accepted norms. It's a long process, but it starts with education and ends up with an implementation. And usually this gives a head in terms of competition, and because you're the first one, you're the educator and the creator of norms, and that gives you a leap in terms of a good environment to create business.
We'll switch it up a little.
So I think the main thing is really you got to think about it as a business, right? They have to also achieve their KPIs. They have to also make sure, they are in budget, to time, to quality. So you got to think about it as a business. And a lot of founders and a lot of tech people especially make that mistake. They think like, hey, there is a lot of money to behold. Let's go into government projects. That's easy. It's actually quite the opposite. And they ignore the fact that it's also a business. It has to be run as a business as well, right? And the other thing is you can't just think about long-term goals. You got to think also short-term, step by step. Government officials are also being elected into their roles, not every 10 years, right? But much shorter than this. So if you ignore that fact, then sometimes you do a project, then in I don't know, 4 years down the line, the stakeholders all change, and then you have to start all over again.
Right.
So I would say be very clear about short-term phased approaches to deliver value. Then the successor will see that what you have done in the past and continue. But if you have 4 years project, but you haven't delivered anything in these 4 years, right? Then the likelihood that the budget is going to cut for that is very high. So always think about it as a business and execute accordingly.
So it's something that they use heavily, our government partners do, and then also the industry partners who support them. So I was recently at a conference called ITSEC. Some of you may be familiar. It's a large government conference for simulation. And it's how we support the branches of the military. And they use this to save lives and also resources. And I think it's, there's so many layers, and I guess where I would go with it is that, so I have my Unity hat that I wear, but I also wear a hat where I'm a chapter leader for the VR Air, which is the Virtual Reality Augmented Reality Association. And some of you may be familiar, it's a global organization that supports these initiatives and a few others that help us work towards the future of the 3D internet. And so, Orlando, we're in Miami, and I know, but we have Central Florida, let's say that kind of is like the epicenter of other things happening in simulation, but then you have blockchain down here. And what we've seen is that Florida as a whole is kind of setting a standard. And earlier in one of the panels, you may have heard Jorge talk about Florida's economy, right? And so it's gonna be really interesting to see what Florida cities, so you've got your like municipalities and counties and those types of things, and then you have your like federal government, right? And it's like a race, like who's going to have a smart city? And what does that mean even, right? And so we have to like start looking at what makes sense to get some really strong use cases here in our Florida region. I'll say it like that. I'm not counting Miami out, but there's a big region here that we represent. And Miami's very important in the ecosystem. Municipalities, counties, and et cetera to do that. But we actually have a digital twin of Tyndall Air Force Base. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. It's built in Unity. And then YVR, so we've got YVR, the airport, as well. Vancouver International Airport is built in Unity. And so I think once we get a city in itself, like maybe you think of Singapore as a big city, right? But here that we can connect the dots, that would be preferably somewhere in Florida. That would be a really great starting place to start showing examples. And I think it'll be palatable for people, and they'll start understanding beyond the 4 walls they live in. Right now, a smart city to most people is that their thermostat talks to their iPhone, or that their Ring doorbell, they can gather information on their phone. It's the truth, right? And it is a good example, right? People are making decisions based on their power bill, right? But imagine a city that can actually keep people safe, that can have autonomous vehicles. We've already talking about that. They're being, built with Unity as well. And, like dedicated autonomous lanes on the highway like you see in the expressways, right? But imagine that and what that looks like and how that one use case could really push us forward. I think somebody wants to see it happen. And we got to get to the party. And I do believe there's a lot of power in having blockchain with that. It's not one of these things, it's all of it. And it has to happen, right? Yeah. So I think that we have to start collaborating more with those things to see that happen. And again, it's not one, it's all, so yeah. For sure.
Excellent, Ariane. So it's collaboration, education, and the business mindset behind it that's going to create change with our government entities. So now to end on a fun note, we've learned a lot of insights from you all, but let's start with Ariane. So Ariane, if there was a theme song for your organization and the projects that you lead, what would it be?
A theme song, wow. That's a good question. I would say, gosh, that's a good one. I would probably go with Andre 3000's new flute album, because it's more It's more about the harmony of all of the different instruments he's playing. Everybody has a spot, right? Yeah. Everybody has a role. And I think that's, when we think about the future of the 3D internet, it's really about connecting, collaborating, and creating towards that. And maybe not too much talk, but more walk, right? Yeah. So I would say Andre 3000's new flute album, the whole thing.
Excellent, I love it. Antonio?
I have to think about that one.
I like to surprise you all.
Does anybody know Andre 3000? Okay.
Let's get some hands. Yes, some people. Woo. All right, Antonio.
Funny enough, I was listening to one song the other day, which was from Purple Disco Machine. I think it's called Fireworks. It's pretty good actually, where he's basically saying, hey, everybody wants to just have a good positive vibe around them, and we should all make it happen. And I think that's the biggest problem with sustainability. We make it a negative thing. The world is going under. Everything is bad. I mean, I saw a lot of women here, right? They are empowered. They can do the change. Instead of saying to the ones which are not empowered, hey, you're broke, I would really say, look, I show you how it works, right? That's what you especially are doing. I think what the work you're doing is amazing. So for me, it's all about changing the language, making it positive, showing people possibilities. And that applies also to the whole sustainability story of the planet. Trying to be too negative about it, humans, when it becomes negative, we just block, right? We kind of cramp because, it's fight or flight. And I think we have done that too long. It doesn't work, so we have to start really changing the language. So use everything around us to create a more positive vibe around it, use technology to share the positive stories and not just, disasters and catastrophes. I think if we do that, then we achieve really the change we're looking for, right?
Yeah, excellent, thank you. And Lorenzo, what defines Maya spirits and that's preserving the Mayan jungle? What song?
So there's a song that touches my heart. The name is called Duatli. It's a town where my grandfather was born. It's very magical. It's where a very strong tribe lives. And the song is called Self-Proclaimed, and it talks about never giving up. It's constant and enjoying the losses and the wins, but always as a learning process and keep on the process. Yeah.
I love that. Well, it's been a pleasure to have Antonio, Ariane, and Lorenzo here as our panelists. So please help me give them a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. And now we're going to continue the programming. So we're excited to continue the conversation with Women of Web3. So I'm going to have our panelists come up. We'll have our founder, so Anana, will be joining us. Thank you so much.